Who is your ideal client? Episode 145. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Profit with Law. I am your host, Moshe Amsel, and today I wanted to take a trip back to some marketing basics and talk about your ideal client. But before we even talk about that, I want to bring your attention to the fact that I talk a lot, and I don't know if I talk about it enough on this podcast, but in many of the presentations that I give and the free webinars and masterclasses I've been running, as well as the paid workshops and events that I do, I spend a lot of time talking about being very specific about choosing one practice area, one specific focus for your law firm, so that you can have a unified approach to your sales and marketing efforts. So you can have a unified approach to your efforts internally, as far as where you're going to focus on process development and improvement and so on. So there's a lot of benefit to, for no other better terminology, to niching down into a specific, not just practice area, but a specific service type or service area within a practice area. And it's been talked about. I'm trying to look back on in the podcast directory here on Profit with Law to see which episode we dealt specifically with this on, and not finding it as, here we go. Episode 29, Why Choosing a Niche Will Skyrocket Your Firm. So if you have not listened to episode 29 yet, go back and listen to that as a precursor to this episode, because before we talk about who your ideal client is, you really should know what is the specific practice area and the specific niche service within that practice area that's going to be your focus when you move forward. And from there, we can have this conversation about an ideal client. Now, what is an ideal client and why is that so important? So an ideal client is exactly what it sounds like. It's a client that is ideal to you, meaning they check all the boxes to make you happy or thrilled to be working with them. And we'll talk about what those boxes that they're checking are and how do you figure this out. But the reason it's important to know who your ideal client is very simply because how you market to them, how you find them, what you tell them to get them to buy from you, all of those things are specific to that person. So, for example, if your ideal client was a wealth manager in a multi-million-dollar money management firm, and you were looking for this client, and you went to a seedy part of New York City where there's a big constituency of homeless individuals, and you walked up and down looking for this person, you wouldn't find them. You'd be looking in the wrong place. And this is just an example of what we tend to do sometimes when we do our marketing. Case in point, if your ideal client doesn't use Instagram and you're focusing on Instagram as your social media strategy because everybody's talking about how Instagram is the next big thing, then you are wasting your time and you're in the wrong place. You're barking up the wrong tree. So we can give examples like this all day long, but it's really important to know who your ideal client is so that you know where to find them. It's also important that you speak the same language as them. If your ideal client is a busy working mom, then you can talk to them about things like laundry not getting done, not being able to have dinner on the table for their family because of the work that they're doing, right? Now, obviously, what does this have to do with law? Well, if you're in employment law and your focus is on women who are working, who might be getting discriminated against or things like that, then the language that you're going to use in blog posts and social media posts is going to be centered around things that a working woman would resonate with. Whereas if your ideal client was, a single middle-aged dude, then having that messaging on your social media posts is not going to get their attention. They're not going to look at that. They're not going to be interested in that. So you understand from these examples why it would be important to really identify who this ideal client is. And it's more than that, because you take this ideal client on a journey, and that journey begins with your initial marketing efforts, with their first connection or their first time they get in touch with your brand. And this can play itself out in different ways. So if you're doing interruption-based marketing to get their attention, if you're out there trying to put ads in front of them on Facebook or LinkedIn and stuff like that, that could be their first touch point with you. Or if you're more of a responsive marketing, meaning people are looking for a solution and they're finding you. So a good example for this are criminal attorneys, primarily are responsive marketing, where you're using Google paid ads maybe, or SEO to get people to find you. Then their first interaction with you might be your website. And your website, the colors of the website, the font that you choose, the layout, the way the pictures are presented, all of those lend themselves to a specific type of person. If I came across a attorney's website and there was lots of pink and lots of cursive, curly font on it, not that I have anything against female or female scent in ad scent or website scent, and that's just the terminology that they use for what it smells like, right? When you first look at it, what does it smell like? I would not necessarily, as a guy, be attracted to that site. So it might stop me from looking further at whether or not that is the right person for me, because obviously they're targeting females as their ideal client, and therefore mission accomplished, right? Your purpose is, when you want to attract your ideal client, you want to push away your non-ideal client. So our marketing has two jobs. Our marketing job number one is attract my client to me. Bring me the money, right? The objective number two for marketing, the purpose number two for marketing, is keep away the people I don't want to do business with. So push away somebody who is not a good fit for my firm. And you do that by getting really clear on who your ideal client is and making sure that everything around what you're doing, the look, the feel, the taste of the words that you're saying, the images you're using, the fonts, the colors, everything that you do should be aimed at your ideal client, and at the same time be so out there and obvious that that is who you're trying to reach that it pushes away other people. And this is also why it's so important to niche, so important to choose a specific area within your practice area and stick a stake in the ground and say, this is what we do. This is what we're good at. And the reason is because you want to push away the other work and at the same time attract everyone who needs what you do. You want to become the specialist known for that specific thing so that you're attracting a ton of that work and you're able to streamline your processes around that. You're able to get your marketing message so dialed in. So I don't want to go too far on and down the rabbit hole of niche, but it keeps coming back, and I want to keep reiterating it because that is one of the biggest issues that I see. Just today, I got an email from somebody who's looking for coaching, and I asked some basic questions to see if they're a good fit to work with me, but I saw what their email address was, and I took a look at their website, and the website is terrible. I mean, if you go to the services that we offer, it's got a list of practically every legal service that you can think of is listed there, and yet it's obvious that this is a solo practice with only one attorney. Now, what kind of client is somebody like that going to attract? They're going to attract somebody who's looking for the cheapest person to get the job done. If somebody is looking for a solution to a problem that they're willing to pay for, that they're willing to pay good money for, they're going to be looking for a specialist. They're going to be looking for somebody who specializes in what they need. And therefore, this individual, this attorney, is never going to be getting that work. They're always going to be fighting for these cheap clients who are going to negotiate at the hourly rate. They're going to fight with every bill that you send them. And that's the type of client they're going to attract because they are a generalist. They're not a specialist. And therefore, they're not able to command the respect and the fees that somebody who, this is what I do and this is what I'm good at. If you want somebody who, can be a jack of all trades, then go find yourself another attorney. If that's the position that you're in, then you can command higher fees. You can be selective on who you take on as clients, and you can have a screening process where you screen out the crazies, right? So going back to your ideal client, you need to start to get familiar with who is the person that you are trying to attract. So how do you figure out who your ideal client is? Well, there's a very simple exercise that you can do, and that is to close your eyes and think about all of your experience as an attorney. And think about any time in your career that you just loved working with somebody. Like you literally couldn't wait to get on the phone with them and talk to them about their specific matter. You were just excited to have them on board, and you kind of were like, oh, I wish that every client would be like this client. Try to think of when you encountered somebody like that. There could be more than one time. Hopefully there's more than one time. But most likely, the client that comes to mind had no problems paying their bill. Their bill was always paid on time. They were responsive to you when you had questions, when you asked for things. They got it to you quickly. They appreciated you. They understood the value that you provided, and they respected the value they were receiving. Those are usually the qualities that dictate your happiness with working with that client, right? It's a two-way street, and because you got what you needed out of the relationship and they got what they needed out of the relationship, that made for a wonderful experience for both of you. So if you can think back to that experience, now start to pay attention to who was that client. What specific work were you doing for them? And what characteristics can you think about them? Was it a corporate client? Was it a personal client? Was it a man, a woman? What was their age? What was their experience level? And just think about anything that stands out about their situation that you can correlate to your experience with them. And that will start to form an opinion for you or a vision for you of what your ideal client looks like. Now, that's not to say that once you get this dialed in, that you're going to only get this perfect client walk through the door. What's going to happen is you're going to get similar models to that client, but you're going to be much closer to where you want to be than you otherwise would. So you'll still have people who might fight with you about the bill. You'll still have people who might be slow to pay. You'll still have people who might not appreciate you at the level that they really should. Because that's just going to happen. As you put yourself out there, as you market, you're still going to attract people who are not ideal. But hopefully you're starting to experience this satisfaction level at an increasing rate than what you experienced before. When you get this dialed in and you're able to target your ideal client and market to your ideal client. So the purpose of the episode today is just to help you start to think about this and to formulate what this ideal client looks like. So again, I think that you need to first identify the niche that you serve, identify where your focus is going to be. Because if your ideal client is in a totally different niche or industry, then you have to question, why did you have this positive experience with that client? Was it specific to the work you were doing with them, or was it something else? And if it was specific to the work you were doing with them, you have to go back to the drawing board and say, have I decided on the right niche, the right focus here, or should I be revisiting that? But most likely what you experienced with that client wasn't specific to the type of service or type of work you were doing for them, and it was more about the interaction with the client. That's usually what creates that level of satisfaction. So some of the things that you might want to start to think about or identify about the ideal client that will help you in your marketing is to think of their ideal day. Think of what do they go through, and when they go through the motions of their day, what is it like for them? And particularly you want to focus on some of the emotions that they might be experiencing as they go through their day. And the reason that this is important is because when you go out there and you market, whether it's on your website, whether it's in a blog post, whether it's a social media post, or whether you're doing paid advertising online, it's important for you to be able to talk to your potential customers, talk to the audience that you're trying to reach in a language that they would resonate with. Not just that they would understand, not just that, but that they would listen to you, and they would or read what you wrote, and they would say, "Oh my gosh, he's talking to me. I can't believe she's in my head." That's what they need to be saying when they're reading your stuff, when they're watching your stuff, when they're listening to your stuff. And the way that happens is by getting very clear on what is the emotions that they feel as they go through their day. Because I can now talk to those emotions, I can trigger those emotions. I can be empathetic to those emotions. So you want to pay attention to positive emotions and negative emotions that they might be experiencing throughout the day. And getting clear on who and their ideal day and their desire to resolve a specific problem is going to be the key to your future marketing efforts. So if you haven't thought about this before, I encourage you to go through this exercise, to literally sit down, close your eyes, and think about any of these super positive experiences that you've experienced as an attorney. And then look at who that client was and really dig into what that meant for you and what it was like to work with them. And doing that is going to help identify the attributes of this person that you're trying to find. And once you know what that is, you want to identify, their ideal day and really put yourself in their shoes. Now, sometimes you can't do this if you don't have somebody to talk to about it. You can only assume so much and get it correct if you're not that person, right? So you might need to get on the phone with some of your past clients who were these picture-perfect clients to get some of these answers, to think about, and just ask them questions that would help you get an insight into what their ideal day is like, what challenges they have. So this may be easier said than done because it might not be so easy to reach out to somebody who's a past client, depending on what your business is, what practice area you're in. But you'll have to figure this part out on your own as to how you can execute it. So I hope that this is helpful to you today. I wanted to go back to the basics for marketing because if you don't have this stuff down, if you haven't focused the niche of your firm, if you don't know who your ideal client is, anything else that you're going to do, you're going to be wasting your time and money doing that because you lack clarity going into it. So, it's like knowing that you got to drive, you got to drive cross country in a very short period of time. So you need to do it in a Ferrari, but instead you get an old station wagon and you set out on the trip. Like you're never going to make it to the destination in the time frame that you want to, if you choose the wrong vehicle. And that's going to happen it's going to happen just like that if you don't get these things cleared up front. So don't waste your time and money on marketing efforts until you're able to really clearly articulate this. You're able to clearly define it and figure it out. So that is all, folks. I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. And if you found this episode helpful, go ahead and share it with at least one friend of yours. Help spread the word about the Profit with Law podcast. Take care. That's it for this week's episode of Profit with Law. If you have enjoyed the show, please consider sharing it with at least one person. Imagine how many lives we can change if we each shared this episode. Another way to share the episode is on social media. We appreciate your support and look forward to you joining us again next week.